Hey there, second graders. We are excited to start an entirely new unit in science. You guys got a new science book when you picked up your folder on Friday, and the new science book is called Save the Island. Do you know what kind of things we're going to be learning about?
I hope we're going to be learning about islands and maybe some land shapes and forms and how to save one of them.
Yes! We're
Cool.
also going to be learning all about erosion and how the shape of land changes over time. So before we get started, we are going to be working in your book on the very first lesson today. We'll tell you what page that is in just a minute. But first we're going to be reading to you guys about a couple of different land shapes that you're probably familiar with, but you might not have known the exact definition of. We're going to need this information moving forward. So here we have, it says rivers. Which of these images shows a river? Okay. So I see lots of different images, and I mean, they kind of all look like rivers, don't they?
Because this one looks like a river that someone took a picture of with a camera. And this looks like one that maybe someone drew a picture of. And then we have a close-up of a river, like a river rafting kind of river.
Yeah. And then a drawing of a similar thing.
Yeah, very cool.
Cool. Oh, look at that. That's right. They all show a river. Each image shows a flowing body of water. Rivers can be found in mountains and fields and lead into oceans and lakes. They create waterfalls. They can be narrow, which means skinny, or wide. The water might move fast, like the one that looked like the rapids, or it might move really slow, flowing over rocks and sand. Rivers are found all over the planet. While some may seem straight, they are mostly made of curves and forks, which means they might branch off and go into two different directions. Their shape depends on the surfaces they flow over. All right, Miss Marquardt, can you tell us a little bit about canyons and valleys?
I would love to. Here we go. If you thought the river images also showed valleys or canyons, you were right. Valleys are low areas with hills or mountains on either side. That reminds me of Paradise Valley. Canyons are like valleys, but they have steeper sides.
Like the Grand Canyon?
You betcha. Canyons. Canyons often have a river running through them. The Colorado River runs through the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Think about this. Would a valley exist without mountains?
I wonder if they're going to tell us anything about that.
So if you didn't have mountains, could you have the valley, which is the low part?
The low part. Interesting to think about. All right, let's read a little bit about mountains. Mountains are very tall landforms. They are often steep and rocky. They are found all over the earth. Do you know which is the tallest mountain on land? It is Mount Everest, which is 8,848 meters, or in America, we would say 29,029 feet tall. Sometimes mountains form in a long line called a mountain range. The longest mountain range above water is the Andes in South America. It is more than 4,300 miles long. You know what they keep saying that's like making me think?
What?
They keep saying the largest mountain or the tallest mountain or the tallest on land, which makes me wonder if mountains and mountain ranges exist under the ocean.
Interesting
question.
right?
Huh.
You sound like a scientist.
Yeah, right?
When you read and then that makes you come up with your own questions, you sound like a scientist. That's what good learners do. They come up with questions. Maybe we could practice that later.
Yes.
All right, let's figure out, is this islands or islands?
The S is silent, it's islands.
Islands, that's right. An island is a piece of land that is surrounded by water. Many of the islands in the ocean are actually mountaintops that are above the surface of the water. The rest of the mountain is under the water. I just answered your question.
So mountains can be underwater.
Yes. In fact, it's saying that an island like this is actually just the top of a mountain and the rest of it is hiding below the water.
That's cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, I bet we're gonna keep learning.
What's next? Coasts and beaches. Places where the land meets the ocean are called coasts or coastlines. Beaches are areas of the coast that are made of sand and small loose rocks. A beach is often a nice place to find shells and shiny glass. Lakes. I like a good lake.
Me too. In fact, that looks very relaxing, does it not?
Yes.
Let's find out about lakes. A lake is a large body of water that is surrounded by land. Here is something to think about. A lake can have an island, and an island can have a lake. One is...
Interesting.
Ooh, okay. One is water surrounded by land, and the other is land surrounded by water.
I'm gonna try to turn that down.
Okay. I don't know.
Let's just turn it off for a minute.
Okay.
We'll see if the video we need to show later is affected by that.
That's gonna be fun. However, oceans do not have lakes. Why do you think that is?
Huh.
So a lake can have an island, and an island can have a lake.
Interesting.
But an ocean does not have a lake.
Okay.
Hmm.
I wonder if they'll answer that question for us.
No.
Well, you know, I'm thinking the ocean is like all water, right? It's just completely, all it is water.
It is.
So you can't have a lake by definition is a body of water that's surrounded by land.
True.
If you're in the ocean, which is all water,
Mm-hmm.
there is not land to surround a lake.
No.
So you can't have a lake. It'd be like a body of water inside of a body of water. That doesn't
That's
make
not
sense.
going to work.
Okay, that makes more
So
sense.
an ocean can have an island.
Yeah,
It just can't have a lake.
Yeah.
I bet it can't have a river either.
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I think that rivers can flow into the ocean,
Oh, they definitely do.
but I don't think that it can be inside of the ocean.
Wow. Isn't it cool to come
Yeah.
up with questions
Yeah.
about landforms and
Yeah.
things that we've seen?
Let's practice that. Do you think
Alright.
that'd be a good idea?
I think we should take a look at perhaps this picture right here.
What? You know, that looks really familiar.
I think I've been somewhere that looks just like this.
Yeah, that's really, really, really cool. And, you know, I'm using, as I'm looking at this very beautiful picture,
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of water.
Same.
I'm seeing some rock here. I'm seeing some sand, so that leads me to believe that maybe this is like near the coast, near a beach.
Yeah, it
Right?
looks like this is the beach where the water is kind of, the little waves are crashing up onto the
Yeah.
beach.
But I have some questions.
Me too.
I'm wondering how in the world did that hole get inside of that big rock?
I don't know.
That's something that I'd like to find out.
But how did that rock even get there in the first place?
I mean, that just, a question leads to another question, right?
And then what's with this rock?
Yeah,
Did they used to be connected?
that's a really good question.
Where did the missing piece go?
Huh. Well, I mean, I think it's time to open our books and get to work.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so our very first lesson in our new science book called Save the Island, so make sure you're in the new science book, is lesson 1 on pages 3 through 6. It's called What Happened to the Land. So if you look at the directions, it says, look at the landforms. There's landforms on page 3, 4, and 5 when we flip the page. We are going to be writing down any questions we have about what we see. Now, Ms. Marquardt and I are going to come up with some questions on our own,
Mm-hmm.
but we want you to also feel free to write down any questions you have that we didn't come up with. So we're going to require a minimum of 1 question,
Mm-hmm.
but you're welcome to write as many as you want, right? So just looking at the picture on number 1, landform number 1, what are some questions you have when you look at this?
I'm really wondering how all of these rocks got here.
Yeah, how did those rocks get there?
Can we write on that? Would that be easier?
That might be easier.
Okay, because
Yeah,
then
go
we're
ahead.
gonna move it over.
Sure.
All right. So
That's smarter.
how did the rocks?
Yeah, they're just like in random spots on the coast of the beach. Why are they there? How did they get there? Yeah, and you might have more questions than we wrote. Maybe why are some of them tall and pointy and some of them are short and wide? Let's look at number 2. Looks like a river inside of some kind of a canyon, like there's very steep walls of rock on both sides of this river.
Yeah. I actually have a couple questions for
Okay.
this. To begin with, I'm noticing it's a black and white photo.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is making me question, when was this photo taken?
Oh, yeah.
Was this taken back before photographers were able to use color?
Maybe.
So is that why it's black and white? I don't know. So maybe you're even curious about when the photo was taken.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in how the water got there.
Okay. Why don't you write that down?
What, just one of them, you think? Or how many are we allowed
As
to
many
write
as
again?
you want.
Oh,
but why
okay.
don't you just choose one, and if the kids
All right.
want to write additional ones, they can do that.
I'm going to ask, how did the water get there?
All right, let's move over, and remember, feel free to pause the video if you need to copy any of our questions. I have a really big question. Immediately when I saw this picture on number 3, I zeroed in on this big, what looks like a mountain in the background, and I'm noticing that the top of the mountain is kind of concave, like it goes down, and I'm thinking, is that a volcano? That's the first question I had when I saw this picture. You guys might have other questions, like maybe, is there a river at the bottom of these mountains? If that's a volcano, has it ever erupted? Does it still erupt? I'm sure there's a lot of questions if that is a volcano that would come along with that. No. All right, let's look down at number 4. Wow, that's really cool. It reminds me of a place I went to a few years ago called Arches National Park. It's in Utah, and the wind. I remember learning about the wind.
What did you learn?
The wind created the erosion, and it for so many years beat against those rocks that it ended up carving holes in them. That's
So,
pretty cool.
is it possible that wind created that hole?
I think it is. Maybe that can be a question. Did wind create the hole in that rock? We might probably learn about that this unit. I'm also really nervous about turning that speaker back on and trying
Me
to show
too.
the video at the end of this lesson, and I'm crossing my fingers that everything works out well.
You turned a lot of knobs.
I
up
remember
there.
what I did though, okay? Okay,
All right,
let's
great
turn the
questions.
page and look at the last 3 pictures. Okay, picture number 5, I'm seeing snow.
But it also looks like a river.
It kind of does, yeah.
Is it a snow river?
Is it a snow river? I don't know.
Is
Write
a
it
snow
down.
river a thing?
Is a snow river a thing?
I
Do
don't-
rivers, maybe they turn to ice, maybe they get snow on them, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just like a part of the mountainside that just doesn't get a lot of sunlight, so that piece of the snow didn't melt where the other parts did. I'm not really sure. I do have a lot of questions about that one though.
Ooh.
Okay, this is cool. That looks like a diving board
I
coming off
thought
of
the
a rock.
same thing. I'm like, where's the pool?
I would really like to know how that was created.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there just one long piece of rock sticking out
Yeah.
and nothing underneath supporting it? How is that staying standing?
So maybe how did it form?
How in
How
the world
does
did
it
that
stay
form?
like that?
Yes, I mean the questions are like endless with this one.
How about how does, I want to call it a diving board, but
I
I
know.
think it's a rock. How does the rock stay like that? Like, how long has it been there? Can you climb on it?
Great
If you
question.
walked on it, would it fall down?
I don't know. That's really cool though. Oh, trees in the middle of is that a river or a lake? I'm not sure, but there's trees growing in the middle of water.
That's not normal.
And I'm wondering if that was just an area of land that flooded or if there's always water there.
I know, because trees don't normally grow in the middle of
Like a lake
like
or a river.
yeah. So to me, it doesn't seem like it's a lake. But if it's a flood, I wonder how it happened.
Yeah. So maybe we can
So
write,
many
did that land
questions.
flood?
Yeah, did the land flood?
seems like it, but I mean, I'm not sure. Wow. Okay. So after we write this question down, we're getting to the part in the lesson where we need to show you guys a video. And I'm really hoping that these speakers work. So I'm gonna let you turn it back.
We're gonna go number
first to change the input, and then I'll turn on the speakers and we'll see what happens. We're just gonna cross our fingers and hope that it works. And if it doesn't work, we'll stop the video and we'll edit it out, and we'll just show this at the beginning of the next
We
video.
just don't want to do that. Okay.
Okay. Oh, it's working. Oh, not.
All around us. Sometimes in the blink of an eye, and sometimes so slowly, we barely even notice it's happening. But while we can't stop the Earth from changing, that doesn't mean we're powerless. All over the world, scientists and engineers work hard to protect communities from changes like these. Whether it's finding ways to hold back rivers, or stopping beaches from disappearing right in front of our eyes. Over the next few weeks, you'll discover more about the ways our planet changes, both fast and slow. And look at how wind and water shape the land. You'll explore engineering solutions that slow down these changes and meet a community off the coast of Virginia whose island is at risk of disappearing. These people need an engineering solution fast to slow down the changes and save the island.
Wow.
All right, that's a pretty big problem that we're gonna need to help. You can click that back over. Help solve. That island is in danger of being taken over by water, and we need to figure out how to save that island. And through all of the things that we're going to learn during this unit, we're going to come up with a plan to help save that island.
Very cool.
The last thing we're going to do today is to make some predictions about how landscapes change and what we think is possible. Okay?
Very cool.
So thinking about this landscape change, a mountain gets taller. We're gonna put a check mark if we think that's possible. Can a mountain get taller?
I think so.
I think so too. Now here's the tricky part. And this is just a complete guess. We have to decide about how long do we think it would take for a mountain to get taller. Do I think it would take like a day?
No, I think it's probably going to take 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
To see like a noticeable change in the size of a mountain?
Yeah, because I remember reading, I don't know if you remember this, a few weeks ago, we were reading about mountains. We read a book about Mount Everest, and it talked about how the mountain
It grows a little each year.
Yes.
You're right.
So I'm thinking, I don't know, to see a noticeable change, maybe 10 years.
Okay, great. Let's write that down, 10 years. The next one says, a flood covers a town in water. Well, we don't really experience floods here in California, but we know that there are a lot of places around the world and in the United States where they do flood. And flood water can cover a town in minutes. Like, it doesn't necessarily take days or years for a flood. I know the term flash flood. It can happen really quickly. All of a sudden, everything's underwater. So what do you think?
I'm going to guess. So here's what I know, because
Okay.
I don't think I've ever told you or my class this, but where I used to live in New York, we did have a flood one time.
Really?
Yes,
No.
and it filled our entire basement with water. It was crazy. And what happens is, it rains and it rains and it rains, and as all that water comes down, it takes a little while for the flooding to happen. Not a long time, but as it trickles down the mountains and the rivers and the gutters and it gets to the place where it's going to flood, it takes about maybe 60 minutes.
Wow,
So
about an hour.
It can happen faster
Yeah.
if you're in the right kind of area. Some areas will flood faster, but within an hour, even after the rain, things can still flood about an hour after that.
Okay,
So
that's
I'm
big.
gonna guess 1 hour, 60
1 hour,
minutes.
60 minutes, okay. All right, next it says an island grows bigger, which I know that from our reading today, we found out that islands are basically underwater mountains, the tops of underwater mountains. And we know that mountains get taller, which means that islands should be able to get bigger as well.
I bet that probably takes a long time though.
Probably years like it would take for a mountain to get taller.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess that maybe because there's water around it, it takes even longer.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess maybe 15 years.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's a good guess.
Okay.
All right. All right. Rocks change shape. Now, students might think that because rocks are hard, that they never change their shape. They're too hard to change the shape. But that's not true. Rocks definitely change shape through a process called erosion that we're going to learn about during this unit. Erosion can be caused by wind, it can be caused by moving water. Lots of different things can cause a rock to change shape. But how long do you think it would take for a rock to change shape?
You know, it's making me think of that picture of the rock with the hole in it that you said reminded you of the trip that you took. And I bet that didn't happen overnight.
No.
It wasn't like one morning they just woke up and there was a hole in the rock.
A giant hole in the rock, yeah.
In fact, I bet it took a really, really long time.
Probably.
And that hole continues to be there and it probably doesn't change that often.
And it probably grows a little bit each year. Huh?
I'm going to guess 25 years.
Okay, I like that guess. That's a good guess. Okay, next it says a storm knocks down trees. Well, we know if a storm is strong enough, trees can get knocked. I mean, we get big windstorms in Morgan Hill that knock down trees.
Yes.
Even in the last month, we've had a windstorm where I've seen trees knocked down. There was, you know where Old Sizzler was? Now it's Country Waffle, Waffle Country. What is it called?
Country Waffles. Yeah.
There was a tree that got knocked down by the wind.
And there it laid on the corner.
I know.
For like a couple weeks.
And it was like a one-day windstorm.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
I'm gonna say it's gonna take like minutes, maybe from like when the storm starts and it kind of the tree gets weak until it finally collapses.
Okay.
Maybe like 30 minutes.
All right, I'll agree.
Okay.
I'll agree. Finally, a canyon gets deeper, such as the Grand Canyon, which is formed by the Colorado River running through it. And I'm pretty sure that that canyon wasn't formed overnight. It's been there for a long time.
And I don't think it just formed created that deep, deep canyon in a year either. In fact, I went to the Grand Canyon like 10 years ago, and it probably still looks the same. So I'm thinking it's got to take at least 50 years or more to start forming a canyon, or to watch it get deeper. It takes a really long time.
All right, I'll agree.
You know, 50 years.
I'll allow it. 50 years?
Yeah.
These are just guesses again, you guys. It's not like there's one right answer. It could take way longer than that, but
yeah, again, I like how you say it's a prediction because I'm just making a guess. What we don't want to see is that you think a canyon gets deeper in 30 seconds.
yeah.
That's a big difference than, you know, there are things that, like you said, erosion, there are some things that can happen really quickly, like a tree knocking over, and there's some things that take a really long time, like the Grand Canyon forming. And we want you to be able to separate, okay, what are some things that would take a really long time? What are some things that can happen really quickly?
All right, and that's it for today's science.
Yep, we'll see you back.